So I've talked about in the past how I have not always been the biggest fan of the Anubis and Sadie relationship in the Kane Chronicles. And if you want to hear more about that, check out my podcast, The Best Damn Cam, linked here and in the description box, because I go into a lot more detail. But after a recent episode that I had on the podcast with a good friend of mine, Darian, from another Percy Jackson podcast, the podcast of Poseidon, a discussion of how the relationship between Anubis and Sadie could have been made better came up. So today, I'll be discussing how a few small little changes could have made Anubis a little bit healthier. Yes, I immediately regretted coming up with Anubis. What? They probably do have an actual ship name, I just don't know what it is, and Anubis was the first thing that came to my mind, and it sounds awful. Which makes sense, considering the relationship is just as awful too. So hopefully I'll come up with a better one by the end for the new and improved version with these ideas that I have, inspired by Darian, on how to improve Anubis and Sadie's relationship. Number 1. Casper and Cat. The true blueprint for how a supernatural-esque being and a human mortal could somewhat end up from a friends to kind of romantic situation, which is exactly what I think the Anubis and Sadie relationship should have been. In Casper the Ghost, with the first of the Casper the Ghost live action films, Casper and Cat are a pair of young people, Casper also being around the same age as Cat when he died, who connect as friends and confidants within each other and help one another out as best they can, offering emotional support and care towards one another. While it is Casper first who seemingly has more romantic interest towards Cat, because Cat doesn't as much because he's, dead. The build-up that comes after, and even when he is still a ghost and when it's still seemingly not a possibility before he gets the gift of being able to be alive for a day, there is these building blocks of their relationship of how much they sacrifice for one another and how much they deeply care for each other. In the case of Casper giving up his chance for being alive again to make sure that Cat has her father, the one person she loves the most in her life. He cares so deeply for her that he'll give up the one thing he loves most so she can still be happy. He'll still be in her life even if it's not in the way that he wants it to be, because he knows this is what's best for Cat. And it is that dynamic that I think would have really worked for Sadie and Anubis. Anubis, as we see intermittently throughout the series, does try to help Sadie and Carter out, though obviously focusing mainly on Sadie. But he doesn't do it in the way that I think shows how he cares for Sadie as a person or as a romantic interest, because every single time he tries to help, he belittles, insults, and is unkind to her in nearly every interaction they have. Take for this example when he gives her the opening mouse dagger in book 2. The main things that come out from that conversation is him calling her annoying, him basically also calling her a primate, which, unintentional but also kind of not, and them just bickering the whole time, and it's meant to come off as some sort of flirty banter, at least that's what I'm assuming Rick was intending, but it just doesn't. It just comes across as kind of mean. And I think if they'd worked this in a little bit better, of Anubis coming saying, I really shouldn't be doing this, I could get into so much trouble, but you need help and I want to be able to offer something, coming in earnestly to help Sadie, like Casper does with Cat, I think would have really helped in that building towards this dynamic. It also makes so much more sense for why Sadie likes him, because Sadie literally only likes Anubis because he's attractive, which I know that is a thing for people, and she's 12, but that is the only basis for their relationship. She thinks he's hot, and that's it, and we don't even understand why Anubis likes her. He shows no indication. He just kisses her after insulting her, and that's just the premise. We don't see the build-up of their relationship, which is why Casper and Cat should have been the blueprint. Number 2, kind of tying into this a little bit and coming more from Darian on the podcast, Anubis needed to be dorky. He needed to be goofy and confused and a little bit awkward. I think if he'd had this vibe, like I said, of him coming in earnestly, and also even in reference to when he kind of technically calls Sadie a primate, instead of calling her annoying, have him be really flustered and kind of like, wait, no, that's not, no, that is not what I meant. And then just the stumbling bit, having him act like an actual teenage boy, instead of him acting holier than thou. Because I think having this dynamic of him and Sadie, both firstly being young, he needed to be younger. I know he's a god, but even in a supernatural sense, him being a god, we could technically get rid of and that not be a problem. But him being 16 in appearance and an immortal god when she's 12 is a problem. And it's not okay. So having him be closer to her age and having this awkward teen boy energy would have just made him seem so much more sweet and caring and kind of adorable in some way. So we'd again understand why Sadie likes him, understand that Anubis likes her because he's being awkward and goofy around her, which is a sign to everyone that, oh, he likes her because he's being a goof and can't get his words right when he's around her. It would add so much more to their dynamic. And having him be awkward, because again, he's an immortal god who does not know anything about this time period or what modern worlds are like. Having him be awkward about it makes him less of a douche when he's saying that Sadie should have been married off in the first book. Just having him, even, you could still have that in there, just have it be more awkward. Just like, wait, so you're not married? Like, I thought that was what happened, and that's where we get the explanation. It would have been sweeter, it would have been more dorky. I know I keep saying the word dorky, but there is the chance to have had Anubis be a kinder character, and actually be a character that I can understand why Sadie would want to be with him outside of his looks. In general, the relationship between Sadie and Anubis just never made any sense to me, for many of the reasons I've just pointed out. Anubis is rude, and Anubis is not nice to Sadie. It's always felt to me, even when I was reading the books initially, that the romantic attraction that he had towards her just kind of came out of nowhere. When he kissed her on her 13th birthday, I remember being like, wait, what? Because there was nothing leading up to that moment. And yet we're meant to believe in this relationship because Sadie thinks he's attractive and he's mean to her, and when boys are mean, that means they like you, which, whoa, if that was actually the intention, God, or gods in this case, there's just nothing believable about their relationship. There's nothing organic or natural about their relationship. It just feels like Rick Riordan has just gone, 12-year-old girls, they like attractive, powerful boys. I don't know what he was thinking. And that's, I think, is kind of the point. I have no idea where this relationship is coming from. And I think just these two small changes would have made a huge difference in the believability of this relationship, as well as making it a little bit healthier than what it was at current. Having them be closer in age, having him be more like a boy, and having their dynamic go from friendship to romance, instead of just suddenly having romantic elements. The build-up needed to be better. I think these things would probably have helped that. So hopefully, when they're doing the scripts for the King Chronicles adaptation for Netflix, they could possibly improve that. And you know, if the scriptwriter wants to do, you can use this if you want to, just give me credit. And Darian credit, of course. But yeah, I've had issues with the Anubis and Sadie relationship. I would like to see it improved. What do you guys think? Did you ever have an issue with the Anubis and Sadie relationship? And what do you think about these ideas that myself and Darian came up with for how to improve their dynamic as a romantic couple? Whatever the case, let me know in the comment section down below, and be sure to go check out Podcast of Poseidon, which is going to be linked in the description box down below as well. As always, thank you all so much for tuning into this video, and I'll see you all next time.